Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. Today we are upgrading Vihaan. This is one of those commanders that's just gotten a ton of tech over this past year, so we're going to look at him, we're going to update the deck list, and we're going to talk about the cards we're going to include and the cards we're going to take out. But before we do that, don't forget to click on that whatnot link and claim your free $15. Additionally, you guys can get 10% off all of your Tolarian Library proxies whenever you use code DT4D. I'm now sponsored with Baron of Dice. This means you guys can get 5% off whenever you guys use the code DT4D or click the link in the description down below. I'm a huge fan of the awesome art on their deck boxes and just the way they look in general, and you can pair up those awesome deck boxes with high quality playmats that match those deck boxes. Thank you, Baron of Dice, for sponsoring this channel. Now let's read what Vihaan does. This is a 3 CMC creature, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black. He's a legendary creature, dwarf warlock, and he says other outlaws you control have vigilance and haste. He also says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have a treasure you control become a 3/3 construct assassin artifact creature in addition to its other types. This is very, very strong. Now, the way we built this deck, just to go over a brief synopsis, I will have the deck list, or the deck tech listed in the description down below for anybody who wants a more in-depth reasoning. But essentially what we're trying to do here is turn our treasure tokens into these 3/3 creatures. Then we're sacrificing these 3/3 creatures since treasure tokens can sacrifice themselves, and that's going to trigger all of our aristocrat effects. So now we're drawing cards whenever we're sacrificing treasure tokens. We're draining our opponents whenever we sacrifice treasure tokens, and again, it's just aristocrats, treasure tokens. Very, very cool deck. The first card I want to talk about is Cyberman Squadron. This is a 7 CMC artifact creature. It says non-legendary artifact creatures you control have Myriad. Myriad's very cool here because now whenever we attack with one of our treasure tokens, we're going to get 2 token copies of those treasure tokens that are also attacking our other 2 opponents. Now this is very important because the way this deck is leaning, it's going to be one of those decks that wants to deal at least 1 damage to each opponent each turn due to our Grim Hireling effects that generate treasure tokens whenever we deal combat damage to our opponents. We're also adding 2 more of those effects to the deck. We did get Knuckles this year. This is a 4 CMC legendary creature, Echidna Warrior. He has double strike, trample, haste, and whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Again, as long as we can get 1 creature in on each of our opponents, that's going to generate a total of 3 treasure tokens per combat step. And since he has double strike, he can actually generate a 4th treasure token because of that first strike damage. He also says at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 30 or more artifacts, you win the game. Not super relevant here, but it is going to be boosting up that strategy of dealing 1 damage to each of our opponents. I did also want to go over Rev. Rev does essentially the same thing. This is a creature that says whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to create a treasure token and look at the top card of their library. Exile it face down, you may cast that card. So not only do you get a little bit of card advantage from stealing our opponent's cards, additionally you get that text that we really want where we're generating treasure tokens whenever we're dealing combat damage to our opponents. This also makes Goldwaker Triad a no-brainer in this deck. This is a 5 CMC creature dragon with flying and Myriad, there's that Myriad again, and then it says whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. So not only does this do basically the same thing our professional face breakers and Grim Hirelings do, additionally it's just another source that can consistently deal 1 damage to each opponent just by being 1 card, which is going to be incredibly valuable in a deck that is seeking to do at least, again, 1 damage to each opponent per combat step. Malik also seemed super disgusting in this deck. It's 2 CMC, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black, and it says Malik Grim Manipulator enters the battlefield. You and target opponent each select and choose a creature that player controls. Then the choices are revealed and those players sacrifice those creatures. And then it says whenever opponent sacrifices a creature, you create a treasure token. This is pretty broken in this deck because let's say we have a Dictate of Erebos on the battlefield. This is a card that says whenever we sacrifice a creature or whenever a creature we control dies, our opponents have to sacrifice a creature. So now we sacrifice our treasure tokens that are now creatures, and we're going to essentially generate 3 more treasure tokens because we're forcing our opponents to sacrifice 3 additional creatures. Very messed up stuff here. And again, that's just going to ensure that we're not only getting rid of our opponent's board state, that means we can get through with all of our treasure tokens we just created next turn, we're also generating a ton of treasure tokens. So now we can definitely get through. The Grim Hireling strategy is going to work just better now, and we're generating a board state while we're taking away their creatures. Again, it's just really perfect here. Descent into Avernus is also one of those cards that's just way better for us than it is for our opponents. Now, this card can bite you in the butt, so I understand how some people just don't like playing it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to include it here, but I think it's really, really good. This is a 3 CMC enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters into Descent into Avernus, then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. So essentially you get 2 treasure tokens, then 4 treasure tokens, 6 treasure tokens. Now this benefits us a lot more because obviously these treasure tokens are also going to be 3/3 creatures that can deal damage to our opponents. It also is beneficial to us because remember, we are on an aristocrat strategy. So whenever we have our Blood Artist effects out on the battlefield, we sacrifice a treasure token, and not only do we gain life, we're making our opponents lose more life. So we're definitely going to win the race whenever it comes to this card, because this card can turn into who has the most life and who's going to die first, and whoever has the most life just ends up winning. So we have 2 things working for us. We have our Blood Artist effects and the fact that we're attacking them with these 3/3 treasure tokens. Revel in Riches, also a super messed up card. Not only does it say at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasure tokens, you win the game. Additionally, it's whenever a creature an opponent control dies, create a treasure token. So kind of the same thing as Malik here. Whenever we sacrifice our creature treasure token, we're going to generate 3 more non-creature treasure tokens. Just very, very good in this strategy. It's going to ensure that we'll always have more treasure tokens than we have creatures. And then at the end of the day, remember, this is just going to be really messed up while we generate a board state just from taking our opponent's board state away. Now, let's look at the cards that we're cutting to fit these into the deck. The first 2 we're getting rid of is the Balrog and Dargo. Now, these were just very, very cheap commanders that hit like a truck. They do cost 7 CMC each, but they get reduced equal to the amount of things you've sacrificed this turn. So essentially, Dargo's a 1 CMC 7/5, and you have the Balrog being a 7/5 that's also 2 CMC. So they're just very efficient cards in this deck, but they don't really help the strategy a ton, so they were kind of easy cuts for me. Kind of same with Black Market Connections. It makes way more sense to run Revel in Riches instead of Black Market Connections, because Revel in Riches still ramps us, but it also generates treasure tokens instead of just straight up mana. Crime Novelist, arguably still very, very good in the deck. It basically just doubled up on the amount of mana we generated off of sacrificing our treasure tokens, but again, I was just looking for more treasure generation, not necessarily the things that boosted our strategy whenever we sacrifice those treasure tokens. Because if I was looking at the deck whenever I was playing it, I just wanted more and more treasures. So that's the direction we're taking with the upgrades. We're going back on the cards that boost the treasure tokens, and we're going more into generating just more of them. And I think that's the right direction. Same with Mirkwood Bats. Yes, this is an aristocrat payoff, but additionally, like I said, it's 4 CMC and it doesn't generate us any treasure tokens, so I went ahead and cut it. Now this one has won me games, but so has your Blood Artist effects, and so has your Zulaport Cutthroat. So weighing those against each other, I mean, you just cut the most expensive one to make the deck a little bit more efficient. This is a flying bat that says whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. There and Back Again was an amazing card when you got it off. The only problem with There and Back Again is you do have to get it off. This is a 5 CMC enchantment saga. All we really care about is that 3rd chapter that says create Smog, a legendary 6/6 dragon creature token with flying and haste. And then whenever this creature dies, you get to generate 14 treasure tokens. So you did kind of just win the game if you got that off, but again, good luck getting that off. It either happened very quickly and you did the thing, or your Smog just kind of sits on the battlefield, doesn't die, and it's just a 6/6 dragon. So again, a little bit of hoops to jump through here. It was definitely worth it to just go ahead and cut this, because unlike a traditional aristocrat strategy, this is powerful because we do not have to run sacrifice outlets because the treasure tokens sacrifice themselves, right? So instead of including sacrifice outlets to justify including this one card, it's way easier to just cut the one card that doesn't really want to be in the deck. You don't need to include other cards that are usually in this archetype because, again, that's just going to cut down on the uniqueness of the deck and also just the power of what the deck wants to do. You could throw in sack outlets, but again, that's not really why the deck is powerful, and it doesn't really synergize with treasure tokens at all because treasure tokens can sacrifice themselves. A bit of a long explanation, but I thought that one was important because, again, we're running an aristocrat strategy with almost 0 sack outlets, which is kind of unheard of, but really cool that Vihaan can do that. With that being said, guys, I'm going to end it here. Let me know in the comments down below which one of my older deck lists you guys want me to upgrade. I hit this one because, again, we've just gotten a lot of very, very good cards for it recently. And again, I would like to go back and upgrade some of my older ones. So, let me know which ones the audience wants to see. With that being said, I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I'll see you guys in the next one.